Good evening. Everybody hear me okay? All right. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to not use the lectern in the middle because I don't want to have my back to y'all. My name is Travis Palmer. I'm the director of the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight for what we hope will be a very educational and informative evening. We are with the Chamber, but we're co-hosting this event with the League of Women Voters, so we appreciate their assistance on planning this event. We are both nonpartisan organizations, so we don't endorse candidates. We haven't taken a side on any of the issues that you're going to be asked to vote on in November. Our goal tonight is 100% to just give you all more information so that you feel better about whatever box you decide to check between now and November 5th when voting happens. So I would like to just thank the city for the use of these facilities. It's worked out great for us so far. We did one of these forums for the primaries, and we were in the former city council chambers, and then they moved into this wonderful building, and we're thankful to have use of this again tonight. So I want to thank the city of Caldwell for helping us out. I think I'm just going to turn it straight over to Jean from the League of Women Voters, who is going to have a few things to say. And maybe, Jean, come on up and take the mic. Please give Jean from the League of Women Voters a warm round of applause.
And thank you very much to Travis and Lindy and Sarah and Kathy and all the folks at the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce. They've done a really wonderful job as our partners. We also have assistance tonight from the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. They're the folks in there, and they have some materials about their organization. So if you're from MWEG, please wave your hand. All right, there we are. Thank you. All right, the League of Women Voters was started in 1920 after women won the right to vote. However, for many years now, our organization has been open to both men and women. We're strong supporters of the election process and encourage citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote. The deadline for registering to vote is tomorrow. So you also have an opportunity in Idaho to register at early voting and also on the day of the election, November 5th. We'd like to thank the candidates as well for the participation at a very, very busy time. We're working together to produce this forum so that the voters can become better acquainted with candidates and the issues of our community. Another very important resource for getting to know the candidates, and the candidates are also very familiar with this, are the only nonpartisan online voters guide that has candidate information is vote411.org. We have asked all legislative, congressional candidates and many local candidates to describe what they hope to achieve if they are elected to their positions. Vote411.org, you can navigate, find information about each candidate. There's a little card out in the hallway where you can get some information about how to navigate, find out more about these folks. That's your homework. And will be available after for any questions about registration, about polling places, about early voting, whatever you need from us. Tonight's candidate forum rules call for adherence to the terms of civil discourse by both candidates and the public. The hallmark of democracy is the willingness of all members of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect, not just the people we agree with. This is a vital part of our democratic process. You'll notice that on each of your chairs there is a card or two, and those are for you to ask questions of the candidates. Sarah Joy and I will be the ones who, as you ask the questions, you will hold them up and we will collect them and we will present them to Travis so he can give those questions to each of the candidates. Now, I am pleased to introduce my colleague and fellow co-president, Betsy McBride, who has prepared a neutral, nonpartisan demonstration of ranked choice voting, one of the two components of Proposition 1. It's an initiative on your ballot. You may have heard arguments for and against this proposition. That is not what we're going to be doing for the next several minutes, talking about the pros and cons. We are going to be talking about the facts. After the demonstration, Betsy will take general questions about the process. You are welcome to share other thoughts about the proposition at the end of the candidate forum and as you peel the cookies off of the plates that I have purchased from Albertsons. Betsy.
Thank you. Do we have latecomers without ballots? Okay, you represent Idaho voters, and you have ballots that will demonstrate how ranked choice voting is tabulated after you vote. So, because both the chamber and the league are nonpartisan, I draw your attention to the colors you'll be choosing. There is no red, there is no blue. It's just yellow, green, purple, orange. So, make your ballot and the markers that have been generously supplied. Use your ballot to pick your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and your fourth. So put them in the line with the color. And then we're going to count. Is it clear what you're doing?
Yes, you did.
Are there some more ballots?
We're sharing one, it's fine. Yeah.
Anybody that didn't get a ballot, raise your hand and we'll get one to you. One more over here. Three choices.
Okay, now Jean is going to help us audit, because of course we want safe, safe and no fraud elections. So, here's how this works. Everyone in this room that chose yellow as their first choice, please raise your hand.
I see three.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, wait, four.
Four. Going one.
Oh, I see five.
Five.
Five. of red and blue. So it was 14.
Oh, yeah, 14. 14. And we had an accidental yellow for first choice person, vote purple, and so we spoiled that ballot.
Okay. And this is pumpkin season, orange.
Orange. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
Okay. So you're under Proposition 1, your general election ballot would have 4 candidates on it. Assuming, of course, that at least 4 ran in the primary. That's why we're demonstrating with 4 colors. In the general election, you will see a ballot that looks similar to this with names, not colors. Okay, so what the computer program will do next is say which is the least of these. Yellow. Okay,
Goodbye, yellow.
goodbye, yellow. So now the 5 people who picked yellow as their first choice, what do you have as your second choice?
Raise your hand again if you were yellow.
So that you can tell us.
Okay. Your second choice, orange. 1 for orange. Green. 1 for green. Green. 2 for green. What was your second choice? Green. 3 for green.
Green.
3 for green. And some people,
One missing yellow.
who else had a yellow?
Who was the fifth yellow?
Yellow's on.
If you do not want to rank colors, and you only want to rank 1 color, that's perfectly fine. Perfectly, you are not forced to rank more than 1 person.
Right. But we will point out if you only voted for 1 and they were eliminated, your second choice doesn't exist. Okay, so now, this is an old set. 9 plus 3 is 12. Nobody added purple, so it's 14 still. We've got 1 to the orange. It's 8. So in this round, what color is eliminated?
Goodbye, orange.
Okay, so those people who had orange as their first choice, what was your second choice?
Please raise your hand, orange people. Second choice?
Purple.
Purple. Second choice? Yellow. Purple. Yellow.
Slow down.
What's your second? Raise your hands, okay. So what, you're green? Anyone else? Anyone else? Bueller? Okay.
I think you're missing.
There might be people who didn't choose that,
Oh, I think she wasn't tagging them while you were.
raise your hand again if you were orange. Raise your hand again if you were orange.
The second choice.
So purple's still here. Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, so that's, okay. So what are the scores now? We've got
15 for green. That looks like 18 for purple. And 9 for orange. So orange is eliminated.
They've been, yeah, they're gone.
okay, so you've got this one eliminated, and now you have two. So purple is the winner, assuming that it's more than 50% of the remaining ballots. Not 50% of the original ballots, but of the remaining ballots. Yes, sir?
Well, then adding those up, purple still hasn't won.
Orange is eliminated.
No, orange is eliminated. Nine should be now, because you now have more votes in the third round than you did in the first round.
Okay, but you've got,
All of the people who have orange, you now look at their fourth choice.
yeah,
Nobody,
right,
nobody's voted.
you've got 33, 42 here. So what's more than 50%? 22. Okay. So you, is,
But you shouldn't carry the orange forward.
yeah.
Yeah, orange should not be counted in the third round. It was already eliminated in the second two. So there are
Yes,
only
but you have,
33 votes.
they have to go back and capture
Right,
the
but-
preferences of those.
But the people who voted orange, they would go there then to their next rank for round
Right.
three. They would not be in
Yes.
there. So there are not 9 orange votes in the
Right.
third round. There are 0 orange votes in the third round.
So the one nice thing about capturing everyone's preferences is that someone who comes in second or third knows that, Orange knows that several people actually cared about Orange. And you want to capture every single person's preferences. So that maybe if Orange runs again in another election, they'll know what the strength of their support is.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but when people were saying, well, yellow was my second or third choice, you didn't capture that. What if 10 people had yellow as their second choice? That's not captured anywhere else there. Because when people were saying it here, you said, oh, yellow's already out. So you didn't
Well-
capture second and third choices for yellow
But
here.
we went back and asked everybody who's had yellow as the first choice, what their second choice was. Those got captured here.
Right, but what if it was their third, like, if yellow, but the people whose yellow had yellow as their first choice, assume we would not have yellow as their second or third. What if a bunch of people who had green as their first choice had yellow as their third choice? We didn't go back and capture that at all.
Well,
Green was never
yeah,
eliminated, and
green
therefore
was
their
never
choices now.
eliminated.
So it doesn't matter that everybody who liked green also liked yellow. Yellow was already eliminated because yellow wasn't their favorite.
Yes.
correct.
Yes. But what you're aiming at,
You could actually, your comment, you say everybody's feelings should be represented.
No, not absolutely not.
A single vote, single, the normal way of voting. Everybody's feelings or opinions are represented with a normal voting way you've been
Well,
voting.
yeah, it
yes,
depends on what you mean by normal, but,
Well, the way it's been done the last year. One vote, one
that's,
person.
right.
that is the familiar way. Yes.
Well, yes, and it's
And-
still, I want to take away from your argument that they may not represent their feelings or their opinions without this system.
It's
I
just,
disagree.
yeah, it's just choices. And we will continue this conversation after the candidate forum. We do have 8 candidates who are going to be presenting now, so a round of applause for Betsy.
Anything else you wanted to announce? Okay. All right, so we're going to get right into it so we can try to stay as on time as possible. So if I can have our candidates for U.S. House District 1, Kaylee Peterson and Matt Losby, come on up and take your seats. Sorry, yeah, it looks like there's two ways up, but there's only one. And let's see here. So every candidate tonight that's going to be up here answering questions is going to get a chance to speak 8 times, okay? The first time each candidate speaks, they're going to have 1 minute to do an introductory statement of whatever they want to say to introduce themselves and why they're voting or why they're running and so forth. And then each question, whether it be from the League of Women Voters or questions that we're collecting from the audience, they'll get 1.5 minutes to answer each of those. And then if I gave instructions to all the candidates, because this is not a debate, it's a forum, there's not going to be a lot of rebuttals and going back and forth. So if any candidate feels the need to rebut something that their opponent has said during their time, we've asked them to reserve any rebuttals for their final minute, and they can have that last minute to say whatever they want in response, or they can just go straight to why they should be the one that you vote for. So we're going to get right into it. So in no particular order, Matt, I'm just going to start with you because you're on the left, and we'll kind of go clockwise this first round. And Matt, you have 1 minute, if you please, to do your introductory statement, and please keep an eye on Kathy, who will be doing the timing for the evening.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for coming out here. My name is Matt Losby. I'm the Libertarian running for the U.S. House in Idaho's 1st District this year. Thank you, Zach. I'm running because the United States federal government is wildly out of control. It does horrendously evil things here at home and around the world, robbing us of our well-earned money in order to fund it. It blows up other countries that have nothing to do with us. It robs us of our savings through monetary inflation. It regulates the heck out of everything we're trying to do in our lives to solve the problems that we know how to solve, and a bunch of politicians and bureaucrats in DC have no idea what to do. And so I want to go to Washington, D.C., tell both the Republican and Democrat establishments that they have no idea what they're doing, and so that what they need to do is stop doing evil. Thank you.
Before Kaylee starts, I love the enthusiasm and the support, but in the interest of time, I will ask that we refrain from clapping until the end of all 8 questions, and then you can clap all you want because we'll have a 5-minute break in between each session. Go ahead, Kaylee.
Well, first of all, thanks to everyone who made the time to come out tonight and to the League of Women Voters for creating this opportunity for both of us. My name is Kaylee Peterson. I'm running for the U.S. House in the 1st Congressional District. I come from 6 generations of very old school Republican Idaho farmers. My family homesteaded in North Eagle, and my husband and I, with our 12-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son, still raise our kids on a street that's named after my great-grandparents. I started this campaign in 2022 mainly because there were no other options on the ballot. 60% of the races in the state were running unopposed. And I have spent the last 3 years, I have gone 52,000 miles this year alone, going up and down the district, asking communities to believe in better. People have lost faith in the system, that the government works for them, and there are very real common sense policy solutions to hold the government accountable, hold our elected officials accountable, and create policy that relieves the stress off of working class families.
All right, thank you very much. If I can get the first question either from Sarah or Jean, do we have any of those collected yet?
Yeah, I have a question.
All right,
Actually, I got it from you standing out there.
perfect.
The question is, could both of you address what you see as the most difficult problem that your district faces?
So I'll repeat it for the audience in the microphone. So the question is, what do you see is the most difficult problem that your district faces, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And who are we starting with, Lindy? We're going to start with Kaylee.
This might be one of the hardest questions you can ask. I think our district faces tremendous problems. I think the most difficult problem for us to solve is how do we keep a government in check in which the system weighs against us. That's why I support banning congressional stock trades, term limits, comprehensive campaign finance reforms, all of the things that we need to do to make sure our elected officials only work for voters, not for special interests, not for lobbyists, not for corporations, but only for the people in this district. And I think once we can start restoring faith that the government listens to the people and is working for the people, then we can begin to address some of the real problems that this district faces. One is the tax burden that working class families carry in this country is abominable. There are very real ways. First, we need tax reform. Corporate and the top 1% need to be at least at a 35% tax rate. We need to cut taxes for working class families. The second biggest problem that this district faces is land management. In a state that is 63% federal lands, we need to figure out, one, how do we prevent fire? And two, how do we make sure we use the land wisely so that we have taxes and the tax revenue to support infrastructure in the communities here. There is an incredible piece of legislation in Congress right this second. It's Fire Modernization and Prevention Act. It would help prevent forest fires, and that's my answer.
All right, the most pressing concern for ordinary people in this district, which is what the government should actually be serving, is monetary inflation. I don't need to tell you that prices are going up around the country, especially on the things that ordinary people need in their daily lives. Groceries, gas, all these things that we use on a daily basis. And the root of this problem is the Federal Reserve, which prints a bunch of money for the federal government to spend. The government spends that money on buying people's labor, buying people's materials, and putting them towards ends like blowing up Ukraine and redirecting FEMA resources away from actually helping people who are going through a natural disaster. When they do this printing, it makes everything more expensive because there are more dollars chasing fewer goods. And so if we're going to address this, we need to go after all sorts of government overspending around the world, here at home. That includes some sacred cows, including the military, Social Security, welfare systems, Medicare. These are all extremely expensive, and we aren't paying for them by actually putting goods toward them. We're paying for them by printing money, devaluing the money that is sitting in your bank accounts. Idaho can improve on this by starting to allow alternate currencies such as gold and silver, Bitcoin, things that the monetary system of the American government cannot deflate away. And so I hope that we can address that. It's been a long time since Ron Paul got people chanting "End the Fed." I hope we can get back to it.
All right, thank you very much. Can my question collectors bring me some more questions so that I can, what I forgot to mention at the beginning is we are streaming this live. So for those of you that are tuning in at home, thank you very much. We know there's a handful of those folks. If you have to leave early, but you want to stay up on the rest of the evening, we are streaming this on YouTube as well. You all have some question cards and some pens spread throughout, and what our collectors are doing is they're going to bring some of these questions together. If there's a lot of them that are similar, they may consolidate those just so we're not asking the same question over and over. We'll try to get through as many as we can and consolidate them, and thank you very much. So I will move on to the next question. Who's this one going to? We're going to start with Matt on this one. Matt, why does your opponent, Russ Fulcher, continue to be silent and refuse to address the issues unlike both of you? What do you both say to that? I should add, we did invite the other two candidates, both Russ Fulcher as well as Brendan Gomez, and they were not able to attend tonight, so I appreciate the two of you for coming. So, yeah, would you like me to repeat that, or you got it?
I've got it. So
Okay.
the reason that Russ Fulcher doesn't spend a lot of effort on campaigning is because he's a Republican and this state is dominated by people who vote Republican out of habit, if nothing else, or often because they want to make sure that a progressive doesn't win. And you know, that's to be expected. You don't spend a lot of effort if you don't need to, when you could be doing something more valuable for your own time. One of the reasons that I think it's interesting to look at this race is in 2022, Russ Fulcher got 70% of the vote, more than doubling Ms. Peterson here, which it's understandable in Idaho. One thing that I like to say to right-wing voters is, Russ Fulcher does some of the things that you want, and the rest of the time he makes friends in Washington, D.C. and advances his career. If you vote for me and send me to Washington, D.C., or try to at least, your worst case scenario is that Russ Fulcher continues to be the congressman. Your best case scenario is that you have someone in Washington, D.C. who doesn't owe anything to Mitch McConnell or Hakeem Jeffries. And so I hope that people will consider casting their vote for me rather than Russ Fulcher, knowing that your worst case scenario is the status quo.
Thank you very much. And Kaylee, your response.
It's interesting when I watch my opponent, Russ Fulcher, talk about all of the problems in the government, and yet he's been there for over 6 years. I want to remind this district that when Fulcher was elected in 2018, there was a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. And yet still, we increased the national deficit, and yet still land management was a mess. And yet still, we didn't address high taxes. We didn't address any of the issues that we continue to struggle with today. And I think when Russ Fulcher fails to attend these events, it's because he knows he's been a part of a problematic system that has not worked for the people in this state. And I understand Mr. Losby when he talks about being beholden to people like Mitch McConnell or Hakeem Jeffries. And the greatest part about being a rural Democrat, coming from a long line of very stubborn Idahoans, is that I am beholden to absolutely no one. The DNC is not paying attention to this district. The party is not paying attention to federal races. I am here not to be a party politician, but to try and repair some of the hyper-partisan politics that we deal with right now, so we can get past the Democrat and the Republican and get to exactly who the candidate is, what they stand for, their integrity, their moral fiber, their accountability, and their honesty. And that's why I think Russ Fulcher struggles to attend these events with us.
All right, thank you very much. All right, on this next question, Lindy, who are we starting with? Kaylee. Kaylee, this question is about the amount of land that the government, okay, so I'll just read the question as it is. The federal government, according to this question asker, controls 62% of land in Idaho. Is this the right amount? Yes or no, and why? So what do you think is the right amount of land that the federal government should control in Idaho?
Here's the biggest issue, because I keep, especially when you listen to my opponent, a lot of the solutions to land management is return that land to the state. And yet the state constitution here in Idaho requires that the state does what is most lucrative with the land that it owns, which in most cases means selling it off. So first, if we want to keep the beautiful public access and the wildlands that we hunt and fish and use each and every day and want to for our future generations, then we cannot return that land back to the state. The second biggest issue with that solution is this would bankrupt the state of Idaho. We need the federal government to pay for managing the 62% of the land that they own here. Now, what we do need is to deregulate the kind of partnership that you can have between local, county, federal agencies, the people who know that land best, so that they can do what needs to be done. The biggest risk we run into when you listen to my opponent, Russ Fulcher specifically, is that we completely deregulate. Things like fix your forest. But the problem with this is if we can completely deregulate, we have issues like when Perpetua mines leach toxic runoff into our water and soil. So there needs to be a balance in which we monitor from the federal government the industries that are using that land, while the federal government helps pay to manage that land, and local Idahoans take care of it the way they know how.
Thank you very much. All right, Matt, would you like to repeat the question?
I've got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The appropriate amount of land in Idaho for the federal government to own is 0%, but maybe we could let them have a military base or two. We do have to spend a lot of money to protect the land, to fight wildfires particularly, to make sure that things are going okay on the state lands. And so I have a very good solution to that. Idaho can just stop sending all the money that the United States government steals from us in income taxes, and we could actually keep that money in our pockets and spend it on the things that we think are valuable. Now, as for selling off the land, using it in the way that is most lucrative, I think that we can do things like happened in the hills above Boise, where citizens came together and they said, we don't want this area to be developed into a bunch of housing developments, so we're going to raise funds, we're going to buy this land, and we're going to create a trust that just manages these lands as a wildlife reserve, keeps them well maintained, keeps the trails good, makes sure that things are handled as far as fire management. That's the kind of approach that we can make that brings things much more local, that keeps our resources, our lands, and our values here, and not managed by bureaucracies that we have to negotiate with in Washington, D.C., or any of the other federal powerhouses.
All right. Matt, we're going to come back to you first on this next question, and that is, what sectors of government require more accountability, and which ones lack integrity the most, in your opinion?
Well, the short answer for which ones require more accountability, all of them that we don't manage to abolish. As for, which ones we should, I'm sorry, what was the second half of the question? I mostly wanted to get that line in.
Sure. It's what sectors of government require more accountability, and which ones lack integrity the most, in your opinion?
So the ones that lack integrity the most are probably those related to regulatory agencies dealing with food and medicine. There is massive corruption between them and the pharmaceutical industry and the GMO industry. There's also the so-called intelligence agencies. If anyone knows how many there are, it's a higher number than you think. I'll see who can actually name it to me after the event. We have no ability to even tell what the CIA and the FBI are doing. The NSA systemically violates our rights. The TSA performs what I would call sexual assault against many people who just want to travel in the US. So they clearly lack accountability, and we have just no ability to hold them to account.
Thank you very much. Kaylee, would you like to hear the question again?
Oh, no, I've got it. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
So a lot of times, especially this campaign cycle, when people talk about the government, I hear the government is evil, it's working against us. But we have to remind ourselves the government is just a bunch of people. People from all over this country who go into government for all different reasons. The way that we corrupt this system is through finances. Most congressional campaigns around this country run with $1 to $3 million minimum to be successful. When you look at how much time our elected officials, our administrators spend just trying to find the money that they need to function, that is where we lose our integrity. That is where people start making choices for corporations, for special interests, for far-right think tanks that have learned how to play our system. There are millions and millions of dollars coming into Idaho right now, specifically with years of research messaging, because they know that's how they get votes. So I think that if we want to target accountability, integrity in government first, we start to take out the financial responsibility and obligation that corporations and all of these third parties have created in our process. That means publicly funded elections. If you can't run with $100,000, then maybe you're not working hard enough in this state to run for office. So I think that's first. But I think it all comes down to making sure that we're actually looking at the problem and not making sweeping generalizations. These aren't evil institutions. These are corrupted institutions that can be corrected.
Thank you very much. And Kaylee, we're going to come right back to you. You'll get first chance at this one. Can you give us an example of how you have collaborated with others that may have different views from you, and how would you collaborate in Washington, D.C.?
My whole life has been collaborating. I come from very old school, both Eisenhower and Reagan Republicans. My dad was a big Trump supporter and former Marine. I have spent this entire campaign going to some of the most conservative areas in our state, Riggins, Kamiah, Orfino, Weippe, Sandpoint, Coeur d'Alene, and holding specifically Republican town halls. I'm asking Republican voters and those who may disagree with my policy standpoints to come ask me the difficult questions. Tell me what worries you about the D next to my name, what issues you care about, what you want to see from government. And not once has a single one of these events turned negative or confrontational. I think that when we start looking at what we actually want to see and the solutions that are available, we will find common ground. The fact is, we're not each other's enemies. Your neighbor is not your enemy, the gas station attendant. We're all in this life and we all want the same thing. We want economic stability, we want safety for our family, we all want our natural lands to be well taken care of. All of us want the same things. We might disagree on how we get it. So when I look at collaboration, I have worked with Republican elected legislators, I have worked with Republican voters, independents, libertarians, constitutionalists, and not once have we walked away unable to find resolution and common ground in what needs to happen in government. And I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Thank you very much. Matt, would you like me to repeat the question?
I have it, thank you.
All right.
Most of my time I spend in my career as a software developer making video games. And in that kind of environment, engineers are a very argumentative bunch. We're a very proud bunch. And we tend to have a lot of varying ideas about the correct way to solve a problem. And what that means is when there's a disagreement, you need to just sit down in a room, hash through the problem, talk it through, and figure out, okay, what are the viable solutions, and criticize each other, accept criticism, find a way to actually solve the problem. And often, one person will be wrong and the other right. Sometimes they'll have a mix of the solution that ends up being proper. Now, that applies for having opinions about how to solve a political problem as well. But there are things where you just have to say, no, we can't move forward. So I will happily collaborate in Washington, D.C. with anyone who wants to follow the Constitution, stay within our constitutional bounds as a U.S. Congress. I can think of at least one person in Washington, D.C. who would actually be able to do that, but that's a pretty good start. I could just go and talk to Thomas Massie, and we could see, okay, is there anyone else here who believes in the Constitution and believes that the oaths that we took actually matter? So from there, then it would just be a matter of, okay, now there are these rules in the U.S. House. How can we play the rules in order to actually force the rest of these people to follow their oaths and obey the Constitution?
All right, thank you very much. So this is going to be our 7th question before you get your final 1 minute. I have a stack of fantastic questions up here, which we will not be able to get to them all. So what we will do, what we did with our last forum, is we will collect all these questions, and then if I'm assuming you guys both maybe have some social media accounts, we will post these questions on the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, and I would strongly encourage you, if you have the time and ability, to jump on and answer each of these questions as you're able to after the fact, and that way anybody can see what your answer is after this evening, because unfortunately there's too many good questions and just not enough time to get through them all. So the last question that I'm going to ask you from the audience before you have your final 1 minute to talk about any of the rebuttals or other things is, this one hits very close to home. Caldwell High School was locked down today because a student showed up to school with a gun. How can these instances be prevented? Oh, and I'm sorry, we're going to go to Matt first on this one.
Okay, well, the first way that we can prevent these kinds of instances from happening is for parents to educate their own children rather than handing them to the state. The thing that public schools does is it creates a very vulnerable target where ordinary people are not allowed to carry guns because it's a no-gun zone, right? It's a gun-free zone. And here are all these extremely innocent, extremely vulnerable people, all collected for some malevolent actor to come and commit horrible deeds. So, we'd like to reduce the amount of evil people in our society. That's an extremely difficult thing to do. But what we can do is reduce the amount of soft targets. So I strongly encourage you to homeschool your children, to put them in private schools. I'm very much in favor of school choice. And we need to eliminate gun-free zones so that someone who wants to do an evil act needs to think, you know, there's probably going to be some people there who are going to put an end to me really quickly if I try to do that. So that's the major thing, is just get the kids away from these vulnerable areas, make the areas less vulnerable, and also let's start talking about SSRIs and what they do to the psyches of young people who've been on them for 10 years. They cause suicidal thoughts. They cause delusions of grandeur. These kinds of things cause people to go insane and do evil things. We need to be looking closely at what psychiatrists are doing to our children.
And Kaylee.
You know, this is one of the hardest conversations that I have to have up and down the state, mainly because so often this topic is brought up as a way to fearmonger and score political points. But it's not some abstract idea. The #1 cause of death of American children is gun violence. And I struggle so much with the idea that there aren't common sense laws. If someone holds a gun to their spouse's head and threatens to kill them, law enforcement should have the ability to get guns out of that home. When we look at something as powerful as an AR-15, I expect you to be educated in how to use that weapon, and I expect that background checks are used. This isn't an infringement, this is how laws in the United States of America work. There are no other countries in which it's the #1 cause of death. This is specifically an American issue. And I'm not anti-gun. We are a gun home. I was firing M16s as a child, probably when I wasn't supposed to be. I was raised by a Marine. We are a hunting household. I am not anti-gun. But I do want to make sure that law-abiding citizens are not caught up in the fire because we don't have common sense laws to catch the criminals. If you are a violent offender, if you are a meth dealer, or if you hurt children, you shouldn't own guns.
All right, thank you very much. So in your final minute, we're going first to Kaylee. And just in case, you're welcome to use this final minute for anything you want to say to the crowd. But just so you know, some of the samplings of the other questions that we'll post later have to do with a number of things, from gentrification to updating roads, schools, treatment systems. Who do you support for the presidential race? OBGYNs leaving the state. The BSU volleyball team forfeiting against San Jose because of transgender issues, and as well as deregulation and health and safety protection. So if any of those things help you to decide what you would like to say, those are all on the minds of folks in the audience tonight. So you have a minute.
You know, less than 2% of elected officials in this country come from a working class background. It's actually 1.6%. And we wonder why government doesn't work for us. I think it's time that we elect an Idahoan who knows what it's like to actually live in Idaho, who knows what it's like to have to work a job and can't afford childcare and knows what public education is about. I think it's time we elect someone who's willing to put in the work. For the last 6 years, Idaho has had an absent congressional delegate, someone who doesn't bring in your federal tax dollars for underfunded infrastructure problems, somebody who doesn't vote to bring down the cost of insulin, somebody who doesn't vote for our veterans with the PACT Act, the VA Service Recognition Act. There are very real solutions, but we need to be willing to elect somebody that's putting in the work. So please, if you go to Kaylee for Congress, my TikTok, Facebook, social media, I will answer any questions that you have, because this kind of dialogue is the most important thing that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt, the final minute is yours.
All right. I want to clarify one statistic that was cited earlier. The #1 cause of death for Americans between ages 1 and 19 is gun violence. Most of that is a result of gang violence happening with people in their teens. The number one leading cause of death for children under 13, I believe, is car accidents, but it might be something different. It might be illness. The government does not give you rights. The government has no authority to abridge your rights. Your rights are your own, and when the government infringes on them, you have the right to defend yourself against them. The government is evil because it doesn't give you any other options. It requires you to go along with it, and it will use violence to force you. You have the right to defend yourself against that, and I hope that if you send me to Congress, I might be able to stave off you needing to. Thank you.
All right. At this time, we're going to take a very, very short break, just long enough to switch to the next candidate group, which is going to be the candidates for Idaho State Senate District 11. That'll be Camille Blaylock and Tony Farrow. And feel free to grab a water bottle or any of the cookies. Please don't bring any food into this room, but water bottles are just fine. In the interest of time, we're going to get things started again, so we'll give just another moment for everybody to come back in the room, and we're going to get started. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to remind people is sound in this room gets picked up extremely well. So while the candidates are speaking, I would ask that everyone please refrain from side conversations because it does carry and it interferes with the live feed as well as other people's ability to listen. So I appreciate people keeping as quiet as possible during the question time, and we're going to jump right back into it so we can get back on track. So, our candidates up on the stage now are for Idaho State Senate District 11, Camille Blaylock and Tony Farrow. Let's see, Lindy, who are we going to start with on this one? Tony, we're going to go to you first. We'd like to start with your introductory statement. You have 1 minute, and we'll start the time as soon as you start speaking.
Hi, my name, guys, I'm on the tail end of a cold, so I apologize. My name is Tony Farrow. I'm running for state senate right here in Caldwell's District 11. And I take the work of running for office very seriously in that I have knocked on about 6,000 doors here in Caldwell since I've started running. And I always ask people what issues they're facing. At that time, I have been hearing a lot about growth. So anything that has to do with housing, traffic, water, schools, all of these are the kinds of things that people are really facing. And I have noticed that the legislature addresses almost none of those. And so that's what's really driving me, is really trying to get the legislator to actually focus on the issues that people are facing. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Caldwell, just down the road. My dad owned a small business and my mom was a teacher. I went to Caldwell schools and then graduated from college in engineering. I'm trying to remember myself. And then what did I do? And then I worked in the high-tech industry for about 12 years, went back to grad school and got a PhD in engineering from the University of Washington. And while I was there, I did a lot of teaching and research, and now I have moved back home, and my time is up. I'll tell you all about it another time.
Camille Blaylock, I'm the Republican nominee running for the Senate here in District 11. Born and raised here in Canyon County. I grew up out in Nampa. My husband and I bought a home here in Caldwell about 12 years ago. We've moved a couple times since then, but always within Caldwell. This is definitely our home and our community. I wanted to thank the Chamber for putting on this forum and the League of Women Voters as well. I've spent almost the last almost 20 years of my life in the private sector, and so what you do in the community is important, and I've always supported business people that go into politics. I think they have a unique practical problem-solving perspective that I think is needed in government now more than ever. So thank you for doing this and having everybody here. I am a lifelong Republican. I love Idaho. I obviously grew up here. And I love Idaho because of the values that we have here, where we reward hard work and we teach resilience and grit, and we take pride in being self-reliant and not dependent on the government. And
unfortunately,
so that's why
our
I'm running.
Sorry.
Just wrapping it up.
I'll try not to cut people off. I'll give a little leeway, but thank you very much. All right, we're going to jump right into the first question from the audience. And we're going to get right into some of the hot button issues. Do you, this first question is going to go to Camille. Do you support Idaho's abortion laws as they currently are, or would you want them, or if not, how would you change them? Do you want them weaker, stronger? What would you do?
I support them as they are written now. That being said, we obviously just had our, West Valley, their maternity unit just closed down, and we've had a shortage of OBGYNs wanting to practice within the state. I can't say that I understand all the ins and outs of why that's happening, why they're leaving, and, for me, I'm not a lawyer. I do have a college degree, but not in law. But when I read it, it's pretty clear that they are covered and within the state to still practice and do it in a safe way. So that's one thing I'll want to dig into and understand. But as they're written, I think it's, I support it.
Thank you very much. Tony?
Yeah, I think this issue is really about freedom. It's really about the freedom to choose your own health care and the freedom of religion. I think, right now, and not only does our current law infringe on our freedoms, our current law makes a crime the standard of care. Right, so when a doctor is performing the standard of care that they would perform anywhere else in the country, they could go to jail for 2 to 5 years. So that is why they're leaving, right? I mean, just performing their normal duties in a day-to-day way puts them at risk of going to jail, right? So this law is far more extreme than the people of Idaho are interested in having a law be. And so, I have heard from different people, it's like, oh, well, we have to wait for what the Supreme Court decides. Really, this law is just bad for Idaho, right? This law, we have lost a bunch of OBGYNs. We have seen maternity wards close down. We are shipping people away. The story that came up in the Supreme Court, in the U.S. Supreme Court about our law, was there was a woman who was having a troubled pregnancy. She needed abortion care. She was not able to get it. And her baby eventually died. And she also lost her uterus. So she had to have a hysterectomy. She lost an organ. And she will never get to be a mom because of government interference into her decision-making about her own health care. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Tony, we're going to come to you first on this next question, and that is, so the Chamber just hosted a few weeks ago a summit on housing and development. We spent a full day talking about all the different housing and issues. This question is, what are you doing to promote and implement affordable housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate this so much, and I was at the conference at the C of I, which I learned a lot from also. I have started a group called Caldwell Renters Speak, where anybody who is renting can talk about the issues that they're facing. And I did this because everywhere I go, so many doors I have knocked are people talking about the issues that they are facing as renters. The rental market is so tight, things are so expensive that landlords are treating people really poorly because they know they have nowhere else to go. And so we're hearing a lot of crazy stories from renters about the things that are happening to them. And so part of what we're trying to do is do some better advocacy around issues that renters are facing, as well as, just make more present for people who are comfortable in their homes and the mortgages they got in 2018, that they can see what's happening. Rents have doubled in the last 10 years. Eviction filings went up, nearly doubled in the Valley in 1 year. They nearly doubled in the Treasure Valley. We're going to start seeing a lot of homelessness unless we can get something changed. There are a lot of things the legislature can do. They have to do with encouraging cities to waive some of the zoning ordinances that they have in place. This was something that was talked about at this conference. They can also incentivize cities to approve different types of housing. They can provide all sorts of support to cities and communities that are really trying to make a change. And so those are that would be my number one issue. That would be my number one issue and is my number one issue. Thank you.
Camille, would you like the question repeated?
Yeah.
So the question is, what are you doing to promote and implement affordable housing?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of kind of the incentives and things that Tony's talking about does happen at the local level and within the county. It's not regulated at the state level, so it's hard to say there. I think things that we can encourage at the state level are encouraging, trades. So, I've heard from lots of builders that they don't have the workforce to be able to keep up with building. And I lost my train of thought. Give me a second, it will come back. I was going to say, all of this comes back to the fact that inflation is out of control, and I think we can all feel that. And the fact that evictions are up, like you said, the last year. It's relatable to everybody here that we all feel what the last 4 years of what's happened at the federal level has trickled down into our communities, and it's just skyrocketed our housing prices, and it's hard for anybody to really be able to live at this point. And so I think that's also part of the problem. But yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with local government and making sure that you are working with commissioners and that take care of that zoning.
All right, thank you very much. And Camille, we're going to come to you first on this next one. And the question is, how do you feel about giving public money to private or religious schools?
I'm guessing this is a way to ask about school choice.
School choice, school
That seems to be
vouchers,
the thing,
yes.
yeah. When it comes, I'm a product of school choice. Growing up, my parents were very involved in my education. I was diagnosed dyslexic, and so my parents were very involved in, like, is this the right classroom? There were times that I would start at a school, and my mom would pull me out, and I'd be homeschooled for a couple of years, and then back in the public school system. I ended up graduating from a charter school. And so I appreciate choice, I really do. My kids go to a charter school out here in Caldwell, and we absolutely love it, it's fantastic. That being said, when it comes to school choice and just, a blanket giving money to private schools or religious schools, as you call them, there has to be accountability tied to it. But I am in favor of choice. I think it's benefited me personally. It's benefited my kids, and I think it helps all the schools, choice being the public schools as well. And I think it helps bring all of the schools up a level.
Thank you very much. And Tony, the question again, how do you feel about giving public money to private and religious schools?
Yeah, I think Camille made a really good point, which is that there already are a lot of choices, and there already have been a lot of choices for quite a while. I think, and if people want to send their kids to private or religious schools, they certainly also have that choice. The idea that everyone has to pay for that, I think, is where we disagree. I think, every child that comes out of public school is money away from that public school. And so if we look at, for example, SB 1038, which was 2023's SB 1038, it was really give people $6,000 per kid to pull them out of public school, right? And there was very little accountability, really no accountability in that bill. It passed through committee, it got voted down in the Senate, but it had some traction. There was really no accountability in that bill. It was giving money to people to take their kids out of school. That does defund the public schools. Every time you take a kid out of a public school, it's less money for that school. There was $1 million spent on our primary in May, and a lot of that came from, $1 million of out-of-state money spent on our primary in May, and a lot of the reason that that's being spent is they are investing in opening up our public education budget to private interests, right? So once we say, okay, you can spend this in all these private companies and all these private businesses, who knows what will happen? But they made an investment hoping that this money will become available, all our public money will become available to private companies that are out of state, that are corporate, et cetera. And so no, I haven't seen a bill that like this that I would support. I know the governor is working on something. There are all these kinds of rumors, and so I would have to see this specific bill. The ones I have seen so far, I just completely disagree with, though. They're bad for public schools.
All right. Okay. Tony, we're going to come right back to you for this, your first to answer this next question. So it's funny, some of these questions are recurring from round to round. How do you feel about the BSU women's volleyball team forfeiting a game against a team with a transgender player? Do you support their decision?
You know, I know this issue is an interesting one. I mean, this for me, I like to chalk these kinds of issues up to ones that people love to talk about, but aren't super substantial, don't really impact many people. Right? Eviction filings have doubled in the last year here, right? We are one of the fastest growing states in the nation, and we have been for 10 years. And so there's really no, this is the kind of thing, these are the kinds of issues that get tons of attention at the State House, and we see all sorts of headlines. We never see any headlines about the fact we're growing, right? We never see headlines about potential water shortages, and so what we need to really start doing is stop with, I don't know, all these politics of, I don't know what you even would call this, but it's not important to most of the people of Idaho. I've never had a person at the door say to me anything about trans issues, anything about the BSU decision. These just aren't important. People are getting eviction notices, right? I mean, people's cars are being repossessed. Their rents have doubled in 10 years through absolutely no fault of their own. There are people who are living comfortably who can't anymore. So what I would ask is that we all try to focus on the actual issues at hand, the actual issues related to growth, and we stop, the other thing we need to start doing is fighting for each other instead of against each other. We need to fight for all the people in our community. We need to recognize the people that live here. We need to start caring about them and their situation, and stop fighting over nothing. Stop driving wedges over nothing. Guys, sorry.
All right, thank you very much.
Ranting.
Camille, do you want me to ask the question again?
No, that's good.
You're good? All right.
And I agree. I think there's a lot of, I don't know what you call it, moral grandstanding at times that is exhausting, and it's at times it's like, let's just get back to the things that are important, but a lot of people don't want to talk about, I don't know, the state procurement process or something. But anyway, that being said, obviously it's important to one person here because they asked it, so I'll answer it. I do support them that they didn't, I support women's sports. I mean, my husband and I played on a co-ed volleyball team for years together, and there's a reason why there's rules around how many women you have to have on the court at one time, and how many have to be in the front row. You can't just stack your team with men. They're built differently, and I know it playing against my husband and with my husband. He hits the ball differently than I do, and I played a lot longer, but that's just how it is. So I support them in their choice to do it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Camille, we're going to go to you first on this one. The question is, how familiar are you with Governor Little's launch program, and do you support the program?
I support investing in our future. I get leery when we're giving money for programs, especially when it's not something that's always funded and it has to come back. Typically once you get those in place, they don't go away. So I'm leery about it. That being said, it's been very successful since it's been launched. I personally know some kids that have benefited from it and applied for it, and they're hoping that they get the funding so that they can use it. And that's great. They want to, go into trades that, or skills that are obviously needed in this state. So I'm hopeful, but like I said, anytime those types of programs where we're giving money like that, I am leery, but it seems like a good investment so far.
Tony, would you like to hear the question again?
No, that's
All right.
okay. Yeah, I also support the launch program. I think it is a great idea and has been doing a lot of great things for kids in our community. I think giving, we had a lot of trouble with the go-on rate, and so I think giving kids who maybe had no plans at all to go to college or no plans at all to continue some sort of career training, I think it's a great idea and a great thing, and I hope it keeps getting funded. But I would vote to fund it if I were elected.
All right, thank you very much. And Tony, we're going to go right back to you to answer this one first. This one, just a very simple, what sets you apart from your opponent the most?
Yeah, Camille's awesome, so I'm just saying that. As I said, I take really seriously the work of going around this community and talking to people. I think that really is the thing that sets me apart. I enjoy knocking on all of your doors and having these kinds of conversations. I think it's the most important thing we can do in a democracy is speak with our neighbors about the issues that matter most to them. And so I think for me, and that my plan really is to let the community drive my priorities. When I first started knocking doors, I really was on a different path. But the more that I hear from people, the more issues that I hear, the more my priorities shift to what people are really facing. And that is something I think that's really important. Also, I think I know it's like there is a requirement for some people to have to sign their party platforms. We don't have that kind of requirement, but I definitely put what the people of the district are thinking and feeling far above my party, far above the party platform. So what people are saying to me, what people are really facing, that's the issue that matters most to me. So.
Camille, would you like to hear the question again? What sets you apart from your opponent the most?
Tony's awesome as well, and I always respect, you have an education, you have worked in the private sector. I respect that, and I appreciate the hard work that you've put in. And I agree, getting out and knocking doors. My kids love it. Every night they're ready to go knock doors and talk with people, and it's great. You look people face to face, you have those conversations, and you realize that we're just people, and most people are good, and they're genuine in their concerns. And it's great just to connect with people on that level. That being said, I'm a Republican. She's a Democrat. We have platforms that we, in a higher percentage than less, do we agree with. And, I remember when I found out I was a Republican, I was 14 years old. I got my first job working in the cornfields, topping corn. I knew I made $8 an hour. I knew exactly how many hours I had worked. And when my first check came, I was pretty ticked off to see that it wasn't exactly what I was thinking. And, my dad kindly explained to me what taxes were, and then patted me on the back and said, "Honey, I think you're a Republican." And that's, it's a good reminder that the government takes money from the people and to serve the people, and just keeping a hawk eye on those budgets and making sure that there's innovation innovation and efficiency within our agencies, and making sure that money is being well spent.
All right, Camille, we're going to come to you first with your final minute to say whatever you'd like to say. And just so you know, some of the other questions that we didn't get to are asking about things like, where do you find your inspiration? What's your favorite restaurant in Caldwell? Who are you voting for in the presidential election? Do you support red flag laws? And what do you think about the adoption of education savings accounts? Just in case you want to touch on any of those things in 60 seconds.
Oh, my word. That's a lot. I don't know if I'll go there. I'll just say, Idaho continues to just be a shining star for the rest of the United States. I don't think that's by accident. I think it's because we come together, we collaborate, it's intentional, we sacrifice, you guys sacrificing your night tonight to be here, me sacrificing my dignity to run for office, my time, I guess, to run for office, because it is a sacrifice. It is, an effort, and but I believe in it, and I believe in Idaho. I believe in rewarding hard work, and I want to see an Idaho where business is thriving, and where our kids can grow up with the same freedoms and values that we grew up with, and you know, and so I'm not just running just for this office, I'm running for our community, for our families, for our kids' future, and to keep Idaho strong and independent and thriving.
Tony, the final minute is yours.
Okay. I also wanted to just quickly thank the Chamber and the League of Women Voters and for all of you for coming out. It's really been great to see so many people engaged in this year's election. One thing that I want to say too is I know I've talked a lot about the issues relating to growth really being the issues that people are mostly facing. And I hear a lot from people at the door and I hear a lot from legislators that there's nothing that can be done. You know, they're just going to be really busy working on library bills or all this other nonsense that people just, middle Idaho does not care about. But it's not true. Don't believe them when they say that. There are things that the legislature can do to make sure that our economy is continuing to grow, to make sure that everyone can lead a healthy and happy life. They're just not doing it. And so I would just say we've been electing the same people for a really long time, a really, really long time, and it's not been helping. We're facing high housing costs, we're facing evictions, we're facing concerns over water and farmland, transportation nightmares. I mean, people, these are nightmares. And a lot of problems with our schools have been underfunded for decades. And so we can fix these things, the legislature can fix these things. And so I just encourage people to think about that when you go and vote this year, and thank you again.
Let's give our candidates a round of applause. Once again, we're going to take a very, very short break to grab some more water or cookies or refreshments, use the restroom. We'll be right back here in under 5 minutes. All right, folks, can we get everybody back in? We'll get started in about 30 seconds, please.
Well, I'm sitting here and you're sitting here.
Are we?
Vote for 11A, correct?
Are you right there?
I'm 11B, he's 11A.
Oh, okay, we want 11As on this side, 11Bs on this side, so.
Oh.
Who can I swap? Do you mind? Are you 11A? Yeah. Let's swap you if you don't mind. Last questions or anything? Everybody have water?
Yeah.
We have to push the button to talk.
Yeah, green light means you're good to go, red light shuts it off. And you don't have to put it very hard.
We're gonna hear you sigh, Marcella. We're
Oh.
gonna hear you sigh, your green button's on.
Yes, I know. I'm ready.
All right, as people are getting settled, I just want to, again, ask folks from the audience to please get your questions over here to Sarah or Jean, who are working the crowd. And again, I want to thank all of our supporting folks, not only the chamber staff, Lindy and Kathy, my team at the chamber. Sarah is the chair of our Government Affairs Committee. If anybody's interested in that, come talk to us afterward. All the folks from the League of Women Voters, as well as the folks from the Mormon Women for Ethical Government that are here tonight, we thank you and appreciate all the participants in all the races. So we're going to get started momentarily. So you'll notice there are 4 people up on the stage this time. The 2 folks on the left, Anthony Porto and Kent Marmon, they are running for the Idaho State House District 11A seats. And then Lucas Kaler and Maricela Pacina are running for the Idaho State House District 11B seats. So we're going to ask the same questions to all 4 candidates, same format as before. The first minute will be intros, and then a minute and a half for each question. We will go round robin, so everybody will get a chance to answer the first question or be the first to answer, and we'll just kind of go around robin. Any questions before we start? All right. Lindy, who are we going to start with? Kent. All right. Mr. Marmon, you have 1 minute. Why don't you give us an introduction of yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Kent Marmon. Thank you very much for hosting this forum and for everybody who came out to hear what we had to say tonight and to have us address your concerns. I'm running because Idaho's families, District 11's families, shouldn't be having to pay 6% premium on their groceries. We got to get rid of sales tax on groceries. We have to help renters and homeowners alike by reducing or replacing property tax as a means of supporting our local government and find another way of funding those things. We need school choice. We need parents to be able to choose where to send their kids to get the best education possible. There are a lot of other issues, and we'll probably be addressing those during this forum. I'm an Idaho native, 4th generation, raised here in Caldwell, went to Caldwell schools, and I'm very happy to be here and very happy to have the opportunity to hopefully represent you as your representative.
All right, and we're just going to go clockwise in the room. So, Maricela, would you go next, please?
Yes, thank you. My name is Maricela Pacina. I am the Democratic nominee for candidate for State Legislator District 11, Seat B. And I just want to let people know I was born in Caldwell to migrant parents, graduated as valedictorian from Caldwell High School, and I raised my 2 children here who also graduated Caldwell High School. And currently I'm raising 3 foster children with the help of my adult children. And the reason that I am running is because extremists have taken control of the majority party, and they have, they're passing laws that tell you what you can't do, what you can't be, you can't think, you can't see, and what you can't read. So meanwhile,
like one of my colleagues said, they're ignoring the issues that profoundly impact people's lives that live here in our district. Funding public schools, funding public schools without constantly relying on school bond levies, and eliminating the grocery tax. I'm in conjunction with Mr. Mormon, and then affordable housing and rents, providing necessary health care, and of course, the infrastructure that adequately manages growth. And so one of the things that I want to do, I can't see very far, but I don't know, is that, okay, that's 0, okay. We'll talk about it more.
Thank you very much. And Lucas, we'll go to you next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming down tonight to listen to this candidate forum. Travis Palmer and the Caldwell Chamber, thank you. And, excuse me, League of Women Voters, thank you for the invite to come out and talk tonight. So I am a native Idahoan. I grew up in Nampa, and I'm also a U.S. Navy veteran. I have extensive background in the military and Department of Defense. I also have been working in the construction industry for the past almost 13 years. Reasons that I decided to run is because despite having a Republican supermajority in the state legislature, we having noted the lack of conservative leadership in our state house. As you have probably seen, our state budget has increased by 54% over the past 5 years, and that kind of growth is going to do nothing but raise taxes on the tax base in this state, and that is you and me. And I'm also fighting to protect the constitutional freedoms of the Idaho citizens. Thank you.
All right, and Anthony, your introduction, please.
Hi, I'm Anthony Porto. I'm running to be your next state representative. I've worked and volunteered on political campaigns from both sides of the aisle over the course of my, my time here. I'm really concerned that we don't have town halls in Caldwell. This is one of the few public forums we ever have, and we never have them during the session and after the session. It's one of my key points. I want to make sure it changes over the course of the next 2 years. I'm running as a Democrat because Democrats in Idaho is the only party that doesn't let you have to sign a loyalty oath. I'm very concerned with those who sign loyalty oaths but hide behind doors and don't actually talk to voters at the doors or at public forums. I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-law enforcement, pro-business. I attend church at Our Lady of the Valley in Caldwell here, and I want to do right by community. But we're at a crossroads. We have schools closing, maternity and delivery wards closing, and we have our legislators are tearing up education, attacking local control. I believe in local control, and we have to let our libraries and school districts do what they need to do. I want to bring about sensible government, increase participation. This district has one of the highest numbers of unregistered voters in the state. We need to change that. We need better representation that cares about working for everyone.
All right, thank you very much. All right, the first question from the audience, I believe, is that going to go to Marcela? Okay, Marcela, we're coming to you first. The question is, would you support the elimination of the grocery tax, and please explain your position?
Yes, as I stated before, I do believe, I would like to eliminate the grocery tax. I believe that well, I know that we are one of the very few states that does have a grocery tax, you know, and most other states do not. And I don't believe that we should be taxing food, one of the greatest commodities that we have, especially in our district, District 11, or in our state, in the state of Idaho. I believe that we can get tax revenue in different ways. I have talked to some of the Democratic leaders, and there are some tax policies that we can go through, and I believe there's other ways that we can be able to get money to run this state, and so that is one of the reasons that I believe that we should not have a grocery tax.
All right, and in an effort to prevent the same people from always having to follow the others, sometimes we're going to go clockwise, sometimes we're going to go counterclockwise. So we're going to reverse direction on this one, and Kent, we're going to go to you next, and that question again was, would you support the elimination of the grocery tax, and please explain your position?
Absolutely. We had a $1.9 billion surplus in the state funding, or the state budget, from overcollection of taxes from people. And families are spending, hard-earned money to try to feed their families. It's an essential. They should not be paying a 6% premium in sales tax on the groceries they buy to feed their families. We have the money already at the state level. We don't need to be collecting that additional tax that you have to wait until April to get back. This is something that's been promised to Idaho taxpayers for years. When Governor Little ran the very first time for governor, one of his campaign platforms was to eliminate sales tax on groceries. We've seen no action. That's part of the reason I'm running. We need action. We need it now.
All right, and Anthony, we'll go to you next.
I think this is one of the questions almost everyone up here agrees. We need to remove the grocery tax. It's been there for over 10 years now. Republicans said they were going to do it. They haven't done it. They continue to waste time talking about cannibalism and other non-culture war issues. I want to actually get things done, what voters actually care about, and this is a local inflation coming from the Republican Party. They said they're going to get rid of it. They haven't. Let's get it done.
All right, and Lucas, you get the final answer on this one, the grocery tax.
Yes, thank you. So I would agree with all of my candidate colleagues up here that the grocery tax absolutely does need to be repealed. On a good day, prior to the inflationary period we're seeing right now, everything's still expensive, right? With the costs increasing across the board, approximately 25% or more for food, that tax increases proportionally. As a fiscal conservative, I believe that we need to do things to defund the taxes that are owed to the government, and I would firmly support and vote yes on a grocery tax repeal bill if elected.
All right, thank you very much. I believe this next question, actually, we're going to start with Lucas. So this one is with regards to the state's minimum wage, which I believe currently, as of 2024, in Idaho is $7.25. Is the state's minimum wage behind the times? And please explain your position.
Yes, thank you for the question. State minimum wage, I would say that the minimum wage needs to be raised an apportionate amount, or a proportional amount, to match the current state of inflation and the cost of living that we see today. I, however, do not agree with a mandatory minimum wage as outlined by the federal government that has been enacted in multiple states. The data suggests that it actually will shutter businesses, and I'm a big proponent of keeping small business open. And so I would not vote to mandate a minimum wage hike like has been observed in other states like California.
All right, and let's go clockwise on this one. So Anthony, we'll come to you.
Yes, I think the federal and state minimum wage are behind the times, but I'm a big proponent of local control. I believe every municipality should be able to set its own minimum wage. What the minimum wage is for Caldwell and Boise would be different than Riggins and so on. So I think minimum wage should be increased, but I will let the local municipalities decide what's best for their community.
All right, and Kent, you're next.
Minimum wage is a mandatory minimum paid to people. It sets a low wage, a low base for businesses and other organizations to pay their people. I don't know the last time you checked the wages at, like McDonald's, for instance, where they're flipping burgers and passing out burgers across the counter, but they're paying $15 or more an hour. And that's not required by government. That is set by the marketplace, and that's the way I think it should be. I don't believe there should be a minimum wage.
All right, and the final answer to the minimum wage question, Maricela.
Okay, when I first started working, it was $3.35, so that was quite a long time ago, but it's just barely doubled. And, you know, it's sad that that's the way it is, because if you think about, I work in title and escrow, so I do a lot of closings. I see every day what people pay monthly for their loans, and, you know, $2,500 a month. And that's, you know, if you take $50,000 that you make per year, you know, you might be able to make it. You got $4,166 a month, and then $2,500 off of that, you might have enough for your insurance, a car, you know, and that is, that's barely making it. That's $46 an hour. So I also agree that it should be local control because I believe in small government.
All right, thank you very much. For this next question, we are going to start with Anthony Porto, and then we will go counterclockwise on this one. And this is going to be a bit of a combination of 3 questions that are all regarding the same topic, so I can clearly see that there's a lot of folks wondering about this one. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a Franken question here. Idaho's new abortion laws have led to hospital delivery wards closing and OBGYNs leaving the state. What would you say to women and couples in Idaho who are afraid or nervous to try to get pregnant, as well as what would you say to someone who may have been impregnated due to rape or incest, and what do you feel like their rights should be in that situation?
So I've been knocking thousands of doors throughout the community, talking to people, and I've met multiple people who've been affected by the closure of the OGBYN, or the OGBYNs leaving and the maternity and delivery ward closing. They're very concerned the direction of the community and the tone it sets for the medical community here in Idaho. We've lost the labor and delivery ward here in Caldwell, Emmett, Sandpoint. The medical community doesn't feel comfortable doing business here because they know one step out of line will lead to litigation and the loss of their license. We need to have, I believe, exceptions for life and health of the mother is the most reasonable path forward to make sure that we can do business as usual, but at the same time allow these exceptions for the medical people to have the nuance to do what they need to do in the emergency room. What would be best for me and my family is going to be different for someone else. And there's very complicated procedures, especially earlier in this year when we had women being medevaced out of Idaho every 2 weeks because of these extreme laws. I would tell women and other people who feel fearful to get involved, to know that there are people who are fighting back, people who want reasonable, sensible government. Let government that governs best govern locally. And local municipalities, this is hurting them, and we have to listen to everyone. This race is about not just whoever wins or loses, you have to represent the whole district. And this is something I want to represent the whole district on this issue, especially when it comes to our medical community.
All right, and we're going to come over here to you, Lucas. Do you want me to read the question one more time? I know it was kind of a mouthful.
I think I got the gist of it written down. So to the first part, what I would say to a couple is, one, if you're afraid to get pregnant, please don't be. God creates life, and new babies being brought into our world are an absolutely beautiful thing. We do have standing laws on the books that govern the response for a physician that needs to save the life of a mother. That is the only instance that I agree that that the baby's life would justify being ended, is to save the life of the mother. For the instances of rape and incest, I am an abortion abolitionist, and I would firmly support the repeal of the rape and incest exemptions in the state. I do believe that all lives are precious and all lives are created by God again, and to take the life of an innocent unborn child just because of a rape or incest feature does not justify the killing of the unborn.
All right, thank you. And Maricela.
Okay, so, there we go, we're green. So as the only woman up here answering this question, I just want to let everybody know that my feelings about it is reproductive choice is health care, and it is a human right. And I also want to say that abortion is a treatment, abortion is treatment for what we've talked about, ectopic pregnancies and other non-viable risky pregnancies, fetal abnormalities, victims of rape, victims of incest. And yes, we have some people up here that will say, you know, the child should go ahead and you know, be able to be alive. But we got to talk about the trauma. We got to talk about the trauma that that child's going to endure, the trauma that the mother's going to endure. I don't believe that abortion is, we should use it as birth control. I don't believe that at all. But there are some things that happen And then we wonder why we have the problems that we do in our community. There's maternal age. Some women could get pregnant when they're really, really old or very, very young. We have pre-existing medical conditions for the mother, like cancer, kidney disease, heart failure. And so those are things that I believe there should be exceptions for that. And I do believe that Idahoans should have the ability to make decisions about their own bodies without government interference. And we have to remember too, all those people that are leaving the state because of the stringent laws that we have are married to other medical physicians or people in the medical professions, and we're losing those people as well.
Kent, you get the final chance to answer this question.
Well, this one is a very, very difficult question because when it comes to the health of the mother, the safety or the life of the mother, then medical procedures need to be followed. The doctors need to be involved in it, making those decisions with the mother. When it comes to birth control as a means of using abortion, I'm absolutely opposed to it because you are ending the life of a human being. It's not the mother's choice at that point because it's a separate life. So it's a murder of an innocent child. I don't know, I am just recently hearing about this, the situation of the OBGYN and maternity wing closure at the hospital. I was not aware of that until tonight, as a matter of fact. I think that there's a lot of discussion that needs to take place, and if we need to adjust our laws so that doctors and medical providers don't feel threatened, to save the lives of mothers and in this state, we need to address those issues.
All right, thank you very much. For the next question, I believe everybody's had a chance to be the first to answer, so I think, Kent, we're back to you. We're going to go to you first on this one. The question is, the Medicaid budget was the single largest budget in Idaho history. Do you think it needs to be changed, or are you okay with it as such?
It's a terrible situation. It was problematic from the very beginning when the people voted on it as an initiative, and 61% of the people voted for it. We've seen a 63% growth in Medicaid spending since it started. We have able-bodied people that are receiving Medicaid. They're told that they need to go on this program. They need to keep their income below a certain level, and they do it so they can get free medical care. We don't have the money to do this, and our state budget has already increased 53% in 5 years, and 55% in 5 years, and we are taking 43% of our budget money from the federal government. That's $35 trillion in debt. We definitely need to address the Medicaid situation in Idaho.
All right, we're going to go counterclockwise on this one. So, Anthony, we're going to go to you. Would you like to hear the question again?
Yes, one more time.
All right, the Medicaid budget was the single largest budget in Idaho history. Do you think it needs to be changed, or is it okay as such?
Voters did vote for the expansion in 2018, and year after year, studies show that it would be more costly to repeal it rather than keep it in place because it offers the federal and state match for certain services that the state would have to otherwise cover completely on their own. So I support it, but at the same time, it always needs to be up for review to make sure, as Kent was mentioning, to make sure that the people who are on it are properly on it. So yes, I support it.
And Lucas, we're going to go to you next. Would you like to hear the question?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Medicaid expansion repeal, I would 100% be in support of voting to repeal Medicaid expansion. Again, taxes, the budget, we've talked about that, the massive increase. We need to do things that start reversing the size of the budget. I am also not a fan of socialized government programs. Medicaid is a social government program. My tax dollars should not go to be funding, rephrase, your tax dollars and my tax dollars should not go to be funding just broad scope government social programs like Medicaid. If you look at the two most expensive industries in the country, namely that would be healthcare and education, I'm a firm believer that the government got their fingers and their regulations and their subsidies out of both of those, and allowed both of those sectors to be regulated by the principles of free market, healthcare would be much more affordable for everyone regardless of income and demographic.
All right, thank you very much. And Maricela?
So I am all for the Medicare expansion. How I would love to live in a society where, you know, I could have all the insurance I wanted, that I could live in a world where I have the means to be able, you know, to be able to work hard, get paid really good, and not have to worry about it. But that's not the case. That's not the case in a lot of places. And there is a need for this. And 62% of our population voted for this. And that is the will of the people. Another thing that I want to say is, yeah, 62% voted for it. And, you know, my colleague says socialized program. Okay, well, what about Social Security? What about being able to get an ambulance to your house if you dial 911? What about those other social programs that we are okay to have because we need them? And so for me, it is important. I am not privileged. I live amongst people that are very, very poor. And for them, it's life or death. And so it is, to me, it's crazy to think that there are not people that need these programs. And not because they don't have to work, and not because they're going to receive it because they've been told don't work so you can apply for this and you can qualify for that. No. I do believe with anything there could be some people that will take advantage of certain programs. I do believe that, but I think that's a small percent.
All right, thank you very much. Maricela, you're going to be first up on this next question, and it is, charter schools are often accused of not following guidelines created for special education students and receiving a fair and inclusive education. What educational format do you feel is best for a student with special needs?
Well, we have a really good special, well, in the state of Idaho, our public schools have to have special, well, let's back it up. Article 9 of the Constitution of the state of Idaho states that we have a duty to provide education to all of our kids in a free and public way. So I may not have said it word for word, but that's the gist of it. And so in a lot of private charter schools, they don't have that option. We, as a public school, and I'm going to say we because I'd like to say that I also sit on the school board for the Caldwell School District, and so we've gone over some of these issues, and it is imperative. We don't pick and choose which child comes to us. Every child that comes through our doors, we have the right to educate them. And so we do have to have a good program, and some of these schools that are school choice don't have those programs, and, you know, and it's pretty sad because they pick and choose who they want. It's not school choice of who you, that the parents have a school choice. No, it's who the school's going to choose to be in their school. And so there is a lot in public education. There is a lot of transparency, a lot of laws that you have to follow when it comes to public education or special education. So that is really important, and we do the best that we can because we are governed by laws, and there are programs, there are people that are looking at us and making sure that we're doing what we need to do, and we're following the law.
All right, we're going to go clockwise on this one. So Lucas, you have the question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Please repeat.
Charter schools are often accused of not following guidelines created for special education students and receiving a fair and inclusive education. What educational format do you feel is the best for students with special needs?
That's a pretty easy one. I think whatever school format that the parent chooses that has a predictable result, allowing the parent to choose a school that has a good track record and a good success rate for dealing with special education or special needs children, rather, sorry. And ultimately leaving that up to the parent to decide. And if there really are instances of charter schools that are not living up to the standards, then I would suggest that those schools be investigated for whatever they're failing to do.
All right, thank you. Anthony, would you like to hear the question again?
Sure, one more time.
Charter schools are often accused of not following guidelines created for special education students in receiving a fair and inclusive education. What educational format do you feel is best for students with special needs?
I think it depends on what the special need may be, but I think I actually agree with Lucas there, talking about the parent needs to decide what's ultimately best for their child, but we need to make sure that the public schools system offers adequate assistance for those in special needs. Too often, when we keep going back to the school voucher scheme, because we already have school of choice, right? The school voucher scheme, removing public tax dollars and putting it in private and religious schools. Often, if someone who is special needs, those funds will go down, and there's no guarantee that someone with special needs will be automatically allowed into private or religious schools. They already have a place at public schools. So I want to make sure that ultimately that their parents should know what's best for their child, but we should have adequate funding at the public education level.
All right, and Kent, you have the final answer. Would you like to hear the question one more time?
I don't need to hear the question.
All right, thank you.
You know, the whole thing about school choice, having parental choice in picking out a school that's best for their child, is that it creates competition. And so charter schools right now, there are charter schools out there right now who are focused on particular things. Like there's a charter school here in Caldwell that focuses on welding and building projects and things like that. And there's projects or schools that are science and math-based schools. Public education has a fantastic special ed program or special needs program already available. What parent is going to decide to take their child out of a school that has a good program and put them into another school? We don't need to do anything. The choices that parents make will take care of itself. And there may be a need out there for somebody to come forth with a great program, like Mike Job might decide to start a special needs school, and he can compete with even the public education. School choice is a good thing.
All right, thank you very much, sir. This is the last of the audience questions, and I tell you what, y'all are not making this easy for me to figure out which questions I can squeeze in. I know you're sweating more than I am up there with these questions. These are some good ones, but it's really hard to decide which ones are going to make the cut tonight and which ones are going to end up on the Facebook forum. So I appreciate everybody's thought and input. So this last one, I'm actually going to combine two. We've had some very specific issue questions. Now I'm going to sort of combine two more general questions together. And let's see here. I believe we are going first to Lucas on this one. Is that correct? Lucas, we're going to go to you first, and then we'll go counterclockwise. So the question is, as an elected official, what are you specifically doing to encourage good citizenship and inclusiveness, and what will you do in your position to become an expert on the issues you plan to propose as legislation? And I can read that again, because I know that's combining two things. You want to hear it again?
Yes.
Yeah, once more, please.
Yep. What are you, as an elected official, what are you specifically doing to encourage good citizenship and inclusiveness? And what will you do to become an expert on issues that you plan to propose as legislation?
Sorry, writing that down so I didn't forget it all. Okay, so good citizenship. My encouragement is one, we have a representative republic. Sorry, got my little tongue tied there. Representative republic means that our government is run by the people, for the people. So the absolute best thing that you and all of your friends, family, and neighbors can do is, one, register to vote, be educated about the issues that are on the ballot, the issues that affect all of us on a daily basis. Those things need to be brought up to your elected officials, your state representatives, your city council members, and so forth. That's how we get involved. Our government is supposed to be run by us. As far as legislative issues, I have sought counsel and will continue to seek counsel from the recognized experts in the community, whether those happen to be doctors or education officials. I am very open to ideas. I'm open to public input. I have a website, I have email. I would encourage everyone here to email to get a hold of me if they have questions or if they have input that they would like to provide to me about a particular issue that they feel very strongly about. Remember, representative or public, I can't say that word tonight, I apologize. I work for you, I answer to you, please come to me. And if I do something that's wrong, please call me on it.
Marcelo, we're going to come to you. Would you like to hear those again?
Yes, please.
Okay. And these are sort of general, philosophical questions about how you approach the office. As an elected official, what are you specifically doing to encourage good citizenship and inclusiveness? And what will you do to become an expert on the issues that you plan to propose as legislation?
Okay, so what am I specifically doing? And I answer this question like what I feel I'm doing that maybe my fellow panelists are not doing is talking to people, talking to all the people, and being inclusive about who I speak to. Because I'm able to speak Spanish, I'm including those that can speak Spanish as well. So I think that's a huge job to get down to their level, not to wait to see if they're going to come to talk to me, but actually go to where they're at, go to whatever it is, schools, events, meet them where they're at, not expect them to come to me. And as far as how am I going to be an expert on what the issues are that are important for my constituents? Well, you guys are the experts. You're going to tell me what it is that needs to be passed through legislation. And I work for you. You have voted me in. So I don't, yes, I am a Democrat. I'm running as a Democrat candidate, but I will not, stop at, if the will of the people have asked me to vote a certain way or to push a certain legislation a certain way, that is what I will do. And so, like I said, I'm not the expert. The people out there are the experts, and they're going to tell me how to prioritize what I'm going to go through with legislation.
Thank you. Kent, you're up next. Would you like to hear the questions?
No, thank you.
All right.
One of the interesting things is, as a candidate and a winner in a primary, a Republican primary, is that you're presumed to be elected in the fall. That's not necessarily the case. I have an opponent. But all summer long, we've been attending all kinds of training sessions, learning sessions. We've tromped the fields and learned about seeds, and we've learned about water and water rights. We've learned about farming and harvesting. We've learned about mining. We read constantly materials that are provided to us by subject experts and by people within our own districts. So, you read the bills, you study the bills, you hear the testimony from both sides, and then you make an informed decision. I like what Senator Treacle has done the last 2 years he was in office. He had monthly town hall meetings where he invited the public to come and get engaged and ask questions and share their concerns. And those were very successful, although the numbers of people who showed up were very small. I intend to continue that, and I have an open door to anyone who wants to give me a call or would like to get together and have coffee or whatever.
All right, Anthony, you get the final stab at this one.
All right, this is a good question. There's kind of a lot of different points to kind of talk to about this question. So I mentioned earlier, knocking on doors. We've knocked on doors, talking to people, actually knowing about the issues. I'm concerned my opponent didn't even know about one of the top issues in the area about the maternity and labor ward closing down. But actually talking to people and increasing participation for those legal citizens who are eligible or U.S. citizens 18 and up. We need to increase participation. The only thing that's positive for us as candidates, whoever wins, doesn't have to get that many votes compared to District 10 or 12, et cetera, because hardly anyone's registered, let alone participates. More people will participate if we actually engage with them. We can't just have town halls. We have to have town halls that invite everyone. It's a true district town hall, not just a central committee meeting. We have to invite everyone. They need to get a mailer, a phone call, a text saying, come down during the session and after. That's my guarantee to you. We have to engage people, and the only way they feel engaged if we include them in on the process. And then, as they were talking about listening to experts, of course, but we have to go to the doors to know about what issues people care about. It's all about we're in the legislator, when we tackle issues. I'm really passionate about transportation too. I would love to invest more into Compass and Valley Rapid Transit. They only get money from the municipalities, not from the state. The only way we'll reduce traffic is actually in putting in public transportation, right? You keep adding more lanes, it won't do anything. We have to listen to the experts on these issues and really bring people together. This is what this district needs. People need to come together from all walks of life, whether you're a homeowner or renter, part of the Latino community, you're white, black, et cetera. We need to bring people together, and I think in doing town halls and engaging people, citizenship classes and talking to people and going and interacting with new members of the community would be a great start.
All right, thank you all. This is your final minute to say whatever you'd like to say. Anthony, we're going to start with you to go first, and we're just going to go from left to right across the room. And just so you know, some of the other questions in the hopper that we didn't get to have to do with any number of things from, again, school vouchers, impact fees, funding public schools, and maintenance as part of the state's constitution. Did Donald Trump win the 2020 election? And again, transgender questions about transgender issues and where you stand on those, if you should choose to touch any of those. You have the first of the 4 final minutes.
So I'd like to tell people a little bit about why I'm running in the first place. I wasn't seeing representation that I wanted. The first step for any citizens is getting involved, knocking doors, making phone calls, interacting with your community. And I just wasn't getting the representation I wanted. And I'm concerned with some of the people up on this panel if they'll give me the representation that all of us want and deserve. Active town halls for everyone's invited, making sure that we're talking to people, door knocking, actually interacting with people. I would love to bring people down to the Capitol and show them and give them tours. And those constituent services, I think, is grossly missing from this district. So many people are struggling, working 2-3 jobs. And so I think this election really comes down to is who is actually going to benefit you as a citizen and talk and represent the entire district, all voters in the entire district. And that's what I'm offering to you. As you can see here, I'm a first-time candidate. Got a little jitters trying to talk to everyone, but I realize we only get representation we want if we step up. So I'm stepping up, and I would encourage you to do the same. Question all of us. Come and call us. We all have phone numbers and emails. Participate in the process.
Kent, you're up next.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, concerns about taxation. People, we are all paying over half of our incomes in taxes, in one form or another, in fees, licenses, taxes, sales tax, income tax, property tax, etc. So today, it's required almost that in a two-parent or a household where you have 2 parents, that both parents work so that one of them can pay all the taxes. We've got to reduce the tax burden, and to do that, we need to decrease the amount of spending that we do. We can't keep on implementing new programs and new taxes. Property taxes need to be lowered. They need to be repealed, because you shouldn't have to pay rent on your property for the rest of your life or face the chance of losing it. You shouldn't have to pay high rents due to commercial property tax being charged to the owners of the property where you live. There are so many other issues, and I'm happy to stay around afterwards and to address them. Give me a call. I'd be happy to sit down with any of you at any time to discuss your thoughts and your needs.
Maricela.
Okay, what I'd like to say is all of my life I've worked hard as an advocate for my community. I have worked, and I want to tell you what I've done. I've been PTO for years, substitute teacher at Caldwell School District, den mother with the Boy Scout Troop 276, Go, Paul and Marjorie Tucker, and I've been Caldwell Youth Baseball Association board, on community board for St. Luke's Hospital, Rotary for 3 years, where I was actively very active in the Foreign Exchange Student Program. Band Booster Club, you know, Stinky Kids, that's a lot of love for Stinky Kids for 8 years. And currently Caldwell School Board trustee for 7 years, the last 5 as chair. But I'm also on my 2nd year as a board member for Community Council of Idaho, the largest nonprofit organization in the state of Idaho. And what I want to say is, when you folks look at us, please look at who aligns, when you're deciding who you're going to vote for, who aligns with the needs and the values that you have, that Idahoans have. I would ask for you to vote for the person and not for the letter. And, you know, I would give you I will serve with integrity all my life. I've given myself to my community, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you. And Lucas, the final minute is yours.
Thank you. In closing, I would like to address the statement that my opponent made about how the Republican Party has been taken over by extremists. I would like to hear what a definition of extremism is on that. I happen to be a Republican. I'd like to know if I'm an extremist. Second point, our founding fathers gave us a beautiful country and gave us a constitution that enshrines our rights that are given to us by God. And the sole responsibility of the government is to protect the individual liberty of the citizen. And to that end, I took a vow to protect my country, to uphold and defend the Constitution when I joined the U.S. Navy. And if I get elected, I give you my solemn vow that I will continue to do that, to uphold your God-given freedoms. And number 3, ranked choice voting. I'm voting no on it. If anybody has any questions about it, would like a little more education about it on the con side versus the pro side, please hit me up afterward. Thank you.
All right, let's give all these candidates a round of applause, please. And I would love for all the candidates tonight to come up so we can take a photo. And please stick around as long as you can. Continue these conversations. I think actually, are we going to try to have any more Q&A on ranked choice, or should we just let people go to talking? Where's Jean at? I think we'll break to get refreshments and continue the conversations. I'd love all the candidates to come up and speak. I want to again thank the city of Caldwell for giving us the facilities. Eddie from the IT department, thank you very much for helping us stream this event. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. Thanks to my staff, and thanks to all the participants and the folks that are in the room. Thank you. And one final thing, I want to let everybody know, whoever wins in November, the Chamber is planning to host a reception for elected officials on November 7th. We're working on the final details of the location. We'll announce that soon. But if you would like to meet whoever wins on November 5th, on the 7th, we're going to have a reception for all the electeds to come to.